form a relationship with the song. For me, that's what I think I'm trying to do in a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, Out of the Walls. Can you remember where you were when you wrote down the line or the title? Or?
Yep. I don't now, but in the house I used to live in, I wrote lyrics on the wall by my bed. So I used to keep a notebook by the bed, but I could never find it in the dark. So then I just taped a pencil, and I had a pencil by the bed, and I'd scribble on the wall. And I'd wake up in the morning, and there'd be these ravings of a madman stuck on the wall. And I can always tell when I'm in a slightly bleak, dark frame of mind as these phrases keep coming out. And I just like the idea of these ideas actually coming out of the walls, and then the darkness comes out and the shadows come out of the walls. And literally, if I'm in a bad space, in an empty room, it can crowd in on me. So it's that kind of idea, really.
So best bits, pieces of that are made into, yeah. And you do the guitar parts or the music that comes with it. Was it written in a similar time period, or?
Yeah, I mean I'm not the world's best piano player, but I like sitting down at the piano and just trying to find little melodies. And I had this chord progression, and that probably was the first line I sang. And it seemed to flow quite quickly from there. And the whole sort of thing about that song is something I try and do in quite a lot of the songs, is make it really fragile. I wanted it to be somehow very delicate and quite vulnerable without being self-indulgent. You know.
But these pieces that you wrote down on the wall, they match together, or you had to puzzle them together to get it?
Well, usually it's a puzzle. On that song, I think that came quite quickly. I mean, you know, there's always a moment where you're trying to, you know, shave the edges off something and make it fit, and that's where your craft element comes in. But I don't like to struggle too much with something. If it's not going to be what it wants to be, then I'll stop and I'll move on. You know, I usually work on 2 or 3 songs at a time. So. Yeah.
Then you mentioned the fragileness in the music. How does that translate itself? What makes something fragile? Because
for me, it's about creating a gap, a space. So, for instance, when you're on stage, there's a gap between you and the audience, which you're trying to go halfway, and you want the audience to meet you halfway as well. So this music thing happens just slightly in front of you and above them, and it's a shared thing. And the same with listening to music. I don't like listening to music and it feels totally in control and really powerful and really invulnerable, and so that doesn't sound human to me. I like songs where there's a gap that as a listener you can fall into. There's silences, there's bits where you actually have to listen harder and form a relationship with the song. For me, that's what I think I'm trying to do in a lot of the stuff.
Is it something you try to do throughout the whole album a little bit?
Not always. I mean, it's just certain things. I know that if a song's going to be a bit more downbeat, I'll want it presented in a certain sort of way. But there are up-tempo numbers, there are louder numbers, there are percussive numbers, and those are, sometimes they can be just like a breath of air on the song. They're not necessarily supposed to be some magnum opus. They're just a bit of energy or a bit of edge that I wanted to put in there. You know.
Can you just briefly explain the title of the album that you?
Yeah, Alphabet of Hurricanes. It's actually the title of a song which isn't on this first part. Hopefully it'll be on it will be on the next part. And I had all these songs, and I didn't want to do a double album, so I thought I'll split it up into part 1 and part 2. And Alphabet of Hurricanes is literally just describing a 2 or 3 year period in my life of storms, quite turbulent, quite chaotic, and I like the idea of the way the Americans name their storms, their hurricanes. They go through the alphabet, and I felt that I'd been through my own alphabet of hurricanes several times, and it just seemed to sum up the album, really.
Was it your period in Brooklyn? The album?
Yeah, it was post, just sort of that. I'd describe it as a 5-year period, really, from LA. I moved from LA to New York, and then spent a year there, and then from New York back to London, and made another record in between. And that whole sort of 5-year period was quite chaotic, but that's not a bad thing. You know.
But what was one of the hurricanes that made you move away out of America?
Not really, no. It's just
personal hurricanes, and I mean,
I always think if there's a hurricane, raise your sail. You know, see where it blows you. Don't fight it. And I don't have a problem with that. I like embracing those things because for me that makes an adventure. You know.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.